Hi, I'm Ashley Reed. I am the author of the soon-to-be released sci-fi romance Psionic Heart. How would I describe the kind of stories I write? This is a great question. The stories that I write, I think first and foremost are Afrofuturist. I think I so often have been drawn to these stories that center around fantastical futures and, timelines, and frequently they do not depict Black faces or Black stories or Black experiences. So, in my writing, the kind of stories that I want to tell are inherently Afrofuturist in that they imagine Black people within these, fictional, fantastical future worlds, living and surviving, thriving, sometimes triumphing through adversity. And I guess on that same note, I would say that my stories are rich with emotion, complex family dynamics, both, born family and found family, and, filled with a lot of tense emotions at times. There is often some heartbreak. Um, Not too much, but just a little bit. They are a ride. They're a wild ride. Do I think I could survive in the world I have created? Woo! Could I survive in the worlds that I have created? I think that the worlds that I have created are very derivative and in ways somewhat reflective of the world we live in now. And I think that a lot of the elements that I pull into the worlds that I build have a certain commentary on the world that we live in now. And because of that, I think I have a unique way that I would navigate the world. Specifically, if we're talking about the world of Psionic Heart, I think I have a unique way that I would navigate it, which is to say unscrupulously, but I think I could survive. It wouldn't be easy. But I think I could survive. What do you hope Black readers feel when they read your work, when they read my work? I hope first and foremost Black readers feel connection when they read my work. That's what I was always looking for, hoping to find when I would open up books and read. I was hoping to feel some sense of kinship with whatever protagonist I was following through those pages. So first and foremost, I just hope that there is that sense of connection, that sense of, I see you, you are like me, So I hope there's that. Also just a sense of hope. Because, going back to the question about worlds and what they're like, obviously they're not perfect, and there is a lot of adversity that these characters may face, but they're still triumphing through that and persevering through these challenges and making it through. So I hope that they would feel a kind of sense of hope in watching them surmount these kind of impossible tasks or seemingly impossible tasks. I hope they would laugh. I like to think that I'm kind of funny on occasion. And yeah, occasional tears, you know, just when warranted, just because I feel like a little bit of heartbreak is kind of like salt, you know? It's just that little bit of seasoning that just adds a little bit of flavor, you know, to the other things in the right places. You don't want like a whole spoonful of salt because that's gonna mess up your day, but just a dash of it makes everything else just pop. You know what I mean? So we gotta have a little bit of heartbreak in there at times. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping that they feel. What is one thing you wish more people knew about this book or about me as an author? So the funny thing about this story, Psionic Heart, is that I came up with the idea for this concept years ago. This idea came to me years and years and years ago. And it was entirely different. It was entirely different. It was a young adult novel. I think it was really more resonant with where I was at that point in time in my life, because I myself was a young adult. You know, I was in my either late teens or early 20s when I initially had a concept for this idea, and I constantly was trying to complete NaNoWriMo challenges, which is National Novel Writing Month, and I would always start and never finish. And I kind of set the idea aside for the better part of a decade. So it essentially sat collecting dust in a document on my computer. And as I got older, I kind of, you know, wanted to revisit this concept, and coming back to it, you know, with fresh eyes, I kind of realized, you know, how limiting certain elements of the story were just by nature of the protagonist's age and by keeping it in the scope of being a young adult novel. There's just certain elements and certain subjects that you cannot really explore in depth or with the level of complexity that you really can get into if you're just focusing on a purely adult novel. Also, you can't really have spice, which, like, I'm kind of a spicy girl, so I kind of need some spice. So revisiting this as, you know, a now 30-year-old, a lot of things changed about the story. The protagonist got a lot older, and, you know, the story became a lot darker. It became a lot more brutal and a lot more unforgiving. But in a lot of ways, I think it kind of clarified it a lot and distilled it to its essence, which I think really has kind of illuminated the emotional heart of this story, which I hope really comes through in the writing. One thing I want people to know about me, is that I find imperfection to be perhaps the single most interesting trait to write about. Just dysfunction and imperfection are just so interesting and extraordinary to me. The beauty of it is just something like being able to capture like a fractured person in totality without necessarily forgiving them on the page is something that I am obsessed with doing. And yeah, morally gray characters are kind of my jam. And so yeah, that's something I want people to know about me as an author. Um, what's a small win that I'm proud of right now? I'll give two small wins that I'm proud of right now. Secured a cover artist for my book. He's fire. Just straight fire coming out of his pen. Like, literally, I'm so excited to see what he comes up with. And another win, I have exceeded 115,000 words on this draft. And honestly, I've kind of steamrolled it. So, I mean, that's kind of a win, but also like we're kind of overshooting it a little bit. But I'll worry about killing my darlings in the edit. So, those are my two wins. What's one piece of encouragement you'd offer to writers who still may be finding their voice? There is a Zora Neale Hurston quote. I believe it's Zora Neale Hurston. She has a quote that's like, there are years that ask questions and then years that answer. And I feel like no quote is so reflective of the creative process. Stillness is really crucial to finding your voice. And sometimes, people will drill into you like, just write, keep writing. Whatever you do, just get something on the page, just get something on the page. Sometimes the process of writing is actually living. Sometimes the process of writing is being present in your life and observing how you move through the world and how you interact with people and how those relationships with people change you and move you. And that shapes and informs your writing. And you have to be present in the living in order to be able to come back to the page and meaningfully tell that story and relate in a way that's going to transcend the page to whoever is reading. And so my advice to people who are having trouble finding their voice would just be, if you're in the season that's asking a question, let it ask. Because the season that will answer the question will come. Psionic Heart, dropping May 20th, 2026. It is available for pre-order on Amazon.com. Just search Psionic Heart. It will be available on hardcover and paperback. Hopefully, God willing, through all major online book retailers as well.